more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Amen, and we've barely started. Thank you, Chris. Gathered from and in this ancient meeting house, gathered on and from the ancestral land of the people of the Massachusetts tribal nation, gathered on this yet far more ancient blue-green ball we call our mother, the earth, gathered. Let us breathe into presence as we gather, whether here or afar, gathered as one. Breathe into presence, breathe into worship, breathe into reflection, breathe into more love right here. And know how good it is to be gathered once again. We'll be hearing the voice of Katie Weintraub for our introit singing Ancient Mother.
Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears.
Michael Jordan, saw you come in from somewhere for the lighting of our chalice. There you are. Say your words and I'll light the chalice.
It started with something like this, a controlled burn that helped extend day into night, giving our ancestors light to record their thoughts and share their wisdom, warmth to heat their homes, and power for transport and industry. The light of a flame has served as a beacon of hope, a warning to ships of hazardous shoals, or in this nation's fabled history, a call to revolution. We built entire economies based on harvesting or extracting material to burn, only to see them collapse like the whaling industry, as our rapaciousness made them unsustainable after so much ecological devastation. In each case, we moved on to rebuild using the next fuel for the fire, unable to predict the ramifications that would lead us to our current climate crisis. I like the chalice today as a beacon of hope, a warning of the hazards of staying the course, and a call to revolution for a swift transition away from burning fossil fuel to sustainable energy sources.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, thank you. Our opening hymn, May Your Life Be as a Song. It's number 1059 in your soft-covered hymn book if you'd like to follow along or hum, almost sing quietly to yourselves as we hear Chris and Rich sing this as a round. May your life be as a song.
May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night. May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, and softly to sing awake the night, ever dancing circles in the night, ever dancing circles in the night, song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly with the sound, to sing awake the light, have a dancing circle in the night, ever dancing circle in the night.
Thank you both. Good morning. Everybody else say good morning on the screen here, I hope. Welcome to worship at and from our Old Ship Meeting House. A warm welcome as always to those who've been coming and being here for decades or years or months, and a warm welcome as always to anyone who is new among us. We're pleased to have everyone here. If you are new, whether online or here in the meeting house, you are invited to get to know us by talking with us or exploring on our website, oldshipchurch.org. And we look forward to getting to know you as you get to know us. After the service, we here are invited outside to enjoy fellowship with one another on this beautiful autumn day. And those on Zoom are welcome to stay on Zoom for conversation among yourselves in that format. And when those of you who are here leave the meeting house, we have several ways out. And if you're at all unsure about stairs or unsteadiness, we have this beautiful garden ramp off to this side to which you are invited to use. Even if you're perfectly steady on your feet or think you are, because sometimes we all have our moments, the ramp is a beautiful way to leave. Two announcements. As many of you have seen through an email on Friday, there'll be another parish meeting, a conversation this Wednesday to continue the conversation about the future of the parish house and how to proceed from there. And that's again at 7 o'clock in the fellowship hall with masks, of course, or on Zoom. The link will be sent out again on Tuesday as part of our regular weekly update. This Saturday and for the next 2 Saturdays, I'll be teaching a class on the Bible, reading the Bible for Unitarian Universalists. It will be in the parlor or on Zoom. And all that information will again be in our weekly update. All are welcome. You can come, just follow the Zoom or email me if you have any questions. This Saturday is the first session at 9 o'clock from 9 till noon. Just let me know. So the time for all ages this morning is a story. I'm going to move over. It's a poem, actually. And I'm hoping that this helps people on Zoom to see the pictures, and some of you will be able to at least get a sense. This is called Change Sings, and it's by Amanda Gorman. You remember Amanda Gorman. the inaugural poet, former youth poetry laureate of our nation, Change Sings. Colin, are we seeing this on Zoom? Yes, I think we are. It's a poem with wonderful pictures. Change sings. I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. Hope you can see the girl playing the guitar. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. And here's this wonderful mural with Dr. King in the foreground. And rainbows. I am a chant that rises and rings. There is hope where my change sings. I'll lower a little bit. Colin's giving me important directions, so you can all see on Zoom. Though some don't understand it, those windmills of mysteries, I sing with all the planet and its hills of histories. There they are cleaning up a playground, carrying around the guitar, and it looks like a, well, Chris could tell me what kind of horn that is. I hum with 100 hearts, each of us lifting a hand. I use my strengths and my smarts. Take a knee to make a stand. I'm as bright as the light each day brings. There is love where my change sings. And there are the two children singing to a woman on her porch, coming out with her walker. I show others tolerance, though it might take some courage. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge. They put their instruments aside and they're building a ramp for a child who is sitting in a wheelchair on that porch. A better bridge. I talk not only of distances, but from where and how we came. I also walk our differences to show we are all the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings. And now they are a marching band. Change sings where? There, inside me, because I'm the change I want to see. As I grow, it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs. What if we each thought that? I am just what this world needs. I'm the voice where freedom rings. You are the love your bright heart brings. We are the waves starting to spring, for we are the change we sing. We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. And now there's a mural of all the kids playing their instruments and dancing. We all hear change strumming. Won't you sing along? Change Sings by Amanda Gorman. come to our time of sharing joys, sorrows, and concerns. I invite you, if you are in this room, if you are in this room, to stand and share your joy or sorrow or concern. And if you're on Zoom, enter it into chat and I will read what you've entered in a few moments. Anyone here who has a joy, sorrow, or concern to share? And we're gonna sing out the youth after we share the joys and sorrows, just so everybody has a chance. Yes, is that Judy? Go ahead. Candle of sorrow for good friends, Deb Scott, and who was the other, Judy? Oh, and her husband, Blake Haskell, who died of COVID in just the past week or so. We light that candle of sadness and memory, and holding them in our hearts, their families. Anyone else? Yes, Derek. I light this candle of concern for your 4 friends in the midst of variously depression and cancer and other ills. We hold them in our hearts, Derek. Anyone else here in the room? I see nothing. Nothing on chat. But we know that though unspoken, there are no doubt joys, sorrows, concerns in many hearts among us this morning, though they've remained unexpressed in words among us. So I light these candles, all the unspoken joys, sorrows, and concerns as we hold one another in our hearts with love. And now we are invited to sing our children and youth out for their programs in our usual way. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
There's a river
May we join our minds and hearts in a time of meditation, prayer, and gathered silence. As we pause, seeking a measure of quiet inwardly and outwardly, seek a measure of greater peace within and around us. As we do, may we feel that we are not alone, that we have one another, that we are held and loved. We are held and loved. As we pray, giving silent voice to the yearnings of our hearts, from the God within to the God of all. Holding in our hearts those named this morning who grieve, who are facing illness or other challenges. Holding our friends, our dear ones, families in our hearts, whether they are near or far. Yearnings of our hearts for our leaders, at whatever level of government, that they might find the wisdom and the courage to help and heal those in need, to help to heal our planet. We pray for shared wisdom, our own and everyone's. As we enter the silence, may it be contemplative, peaceful, silence, quiet within, quiet around. two readings this morning. I'll share the first. This is one of the very earliest talks, we're told, by the Buddha following his enlightenment. It's from what is a short discourse or talk anyway, but it's just a little bit from the beginning, what's often called the fire sermon. And it begins with the narrator and then the Buddha's words. I have heard that on one occasion, the Buddha was staying in Gaya, at Gaya Head, with 1,000 fire worshiping monks. And there he addressed the fire worshipers. Monks, everything is ablaze. What all is ablaze? The eye is ablaze, forms are ablaze, consciousness of the eye is ablaze, on fire. Contact at the eye is ablaze. And whatever there is that arises in dependence on contact at the eye, experienced as pleasure, pain, or neither pleasure nor pain, that too is ablaze, on fire. Ablaze with what? Ablaze with the fire of passion, the fire of aversion, the fire of delusion. Ablaze, I tell you, with birth, aging, and death, with sorrows, lamentations, pains, distresses, and despairs. Here ends the reading, about which I'll have more to say later on this morning. We'll move to our second reading. Trish McAleer Baines is going to share the second reading. Thank you, Trish.
Good morning. Our second reading is from Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants. The moral covenant of reciprocity calls us to honor our responsibilities for all we have been given, for all we have taken. It is our turn now, long overdue. Let us hold a giveaway for Mother Earth. Spread our blankets out for her and pile them high with gifts of our own making. Imagine the books, the paintings, the poems, the clever machines, the compassionate acts, the transcendent ideas, the perfect tools. The fierce defense of all that has been given, gifts of mind, hands, heart, voice, and vision, all offered up on behalf of the earth. Whatever our gift, we are called to give it and to dance for the renewal of the world in return for the privilege of breath. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Trish. Beautiful. Each month, as most of you know, we designate the entirety of an offering on one Sunday and any gifts online for the entire month to some worthy cause or organization that is in line with our own mission. Our October outreach offering, as you may have seen in our newsletters, will be given to help Afghan refugees in Massachusetts through the International Institute of New England. What could be more timely? And we are fortunate this morning to have with us from IINE, Cynthia Hellman, to tell us a little more about their work. Cynthia, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all that you and your organization do.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Cynthia Hellman. I work for the International Institute of New England, and we are so grateful for the faith organizations and the community groups like yours that have reached out to us, offering to help us. And Without your contributions of time and talent of treasure, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. So I thank you so much for being willing to contribute your offering this week to us. So just a few days ago, my colleagues and I went to Logan Airport and we received and welcomed our first family from Afghanistan. It was a very profound and emotional moment for all of us. They came just with a couple of suitcases of clothing and that's all. So I'll just walk you through very quickly what the services that we will provide for this family and the close to 400 additional Afghan refugees that we will receive in the coming months. So we picked them up at the airport and we took them to an apartment in Cambridge that the landlord of which we partner with, who's willing to give us a generous discount. In the next several days after that, we provided them with culturally appropriate food, clothing. And in the next several weeks, we will help them enroll their children in school, find services for them to learn English, and then just provide other kind of wraparound services, making sure they have all their basic needs, teach them things like how to open up a bank account or even to find the nearest bus stop. And of course, we do this all through translators who speak their local language, mostly Pashto. So what this involves is us needing to raise an additional funds for the Afghan refugees on top of the refugees that we already serve. Unfortunately, we only receive a limited amount of funds from the federal government, and that only lasts for 90 days. After that, it's totally dependent on the money that we raise at IINE to continue to provide services. As you can only imagine, they'll continue to need after 90 days in the Boston area. So again, I just really appreciate so much your generosity and your willingness to donate your offering today to us. Thank you.
Thank you again, Cynthia, and everyone at IINE. Every dollar, every check, unless it's designated specifically for a pledge, every check this morning made out to Old Ship Church will be given to IINE for this purpose. You may also donate online if you're on Zoom already, or when those of us who are here go home. That's certainly my intention today, is to make as generous a gift as I can to this good cause using our donate link on the home page. And there'll be a drop-down menu for a number of things, including for this month's outreach offering. So thank you in advance for your generosity. And thank you as well for any of you who brought food to our offering in the vestibule this morning. We're going to try to ramp that up as we move forward to get back into the habit. So we just put the food under the table as you come in on a Sunday morning. And now, music, art offertory.
I'm gonna live so God can use me anytime and anywhere. I'm gonna live so God can use me anytime and anywhere. And I'm gonna work so God can use me. God can use me anytime, anyway. Yes, anywhere. And I'm gonna work so God can use me anytime and anywhere. And I'm gonna pray so God can use me anytime. God can use me anytime, anyway.
Thank you, Rich and Chris, and special thanks to Chris this morning, our tenor soloist who's doing double duty this morning in 1 week absence of Christopher, taking a well-reserved rest this weekend. How shall we live in a burning world is my sermon title. It occurred to me, the title did a few weeks ago as I reflected on the upcoming Glasgow conference, another UN conference on climate change and the climate crisis coming up at the first week in November. Now, I know I don't have to lay out for you the science about all this or to name once again that climate change is now so clearly a climate crisis, climate emergency. Those in Congress, for example, who look at bills with huge investments in alternative energy and say, what's the hurry? Or why so many billions? To my mind, are not living on the same planet as the rest of us. I sent an email to one of those senators this morning after waking a little too early with his name on my mind. I sent him from my heart a wish for well-being and health for him and his family, but I also sent him an email about these other matters. I mean, if we're not in the midst of a climate emergency, if we don't know it now, in the midst of this year of floods, catastrophic floods and heat waves and so much more, I'm not sure what would qualify here on our home planet. Well, I could rant on, I'm not going to. I could list all the things that we all know that we have to do as individuals, as a congregation, certainly as a nation, collectively through our political and corporate institutions. Top of the list, of course, is to stop as soon as we can burning the fossil fuels that are heating and burning and flooding our planet. But you know all this too. And here's the thing, knowing might not be enough. Here's this from Richard Powers. I don't know whether any of you heard him interviewed this morning on Living on Earth, the NPR radio program. Just by coincidence, I had finished reading his new novel, Bewildered, just yesterday. And the novel is set in the not too distant future. A lot of you read The Overstory a few years ago. It's a marvelous work. Anyway, in Bewildered, there are these couple of lines. It's set in the not too distant future, as I say, so imagine. Earth had two kinds of people, those who could do the math and follow the science, and those who were happier with their own truths. But, he goes on, but in our heart's daily practice, we all lived as if tomorrow would be a clone of now. I recognize myself in that we who all live as if tomorrow will be a clone of assuming that life will just go on. And I have a nice, pleasant day-to-day life. And it's easy enough to assume it's just going to go on like this. My life of privilege. So all this said by way of introduction, I want to begin by talking about how this sermon, well, I've already begun, haven't I? I'm going to want to continue, another beginning. Talking about how this sermon title that I came up with nudged me to go deeper than the politics, deeper even than the science. How shall we live in a burning world? Eventually evoked for me the Buddha's fire sermon, with which I was a bit familiar with. You can look it up. It's not long. There are various translations, of course, and we heard a bit, of course, this morning. The fire in the sermon, as I'm sure you surmised, was metaphor. Fire is an apt image for greed and craving, untethered, out of control desire, the burning desire for always more pleasure, more wealth, more power, more recognition and prestige, maybe just more comfort. Now, the Buddha was apparently addressing the origins of personal suffering. Dukkha is the word many of you are familiar with in the original language. The suffering that comes from these, the suffering that comes from these various out of control cravings, desires, particularly when we believe that satisfying this or that or the other desire, that's what will make us happy. But what happens when we multiply the individual by, oh, say, 6 or 7 billion? What happens then? The 6 or 7 billion of us, most of those billions, much of the time anyway, driven to one degree or another in just the way the Buddha names. Driven to want more, thinking that more will make us happy, thinking that an ever expanding economy will make everyone happy. Thinking that getting more stuff far beyond our real needs which of course need to be met. I mean, this morning Cynthia was talking about the needs of these refugees, these fellow human beings coming from afar. Our basic needs need to be filled, but too often it's thinking that more will give us real happiness. Well, then what happens when you multiply the 1 by 7 or 8? Well, what happens is right in front of us. We find ourselves in a quite literally burning planet because of the burning of never satisfied or satisfiable craving. And it's nobody's fault, and it's everybody's fault. It's our challenge as human beings. Yes, we can justifiably point a finger at fossil fuel companies who for decades have denied or downplayed the origins of global warming and the contributions of their industry to global warming and the climate crisis. We can point to politicians and nations denying the gravity of our situation or simply not doing enough in the face of ever more convincing evidence that we are indeed in the midst of a crisis that will continue to escalate if we continue to fail to adequately act. What I'm suggesting, as you're hearing, is that the roots of the crisis run deeper than corporate or political indifference and denial. To put it simply, again, the burning world is a result of our burning greed, rooted in a misunderstanding of what makes for happiness, what makes for human flourishing, what makes for the flourishing of all life. The solution, well, begins with each one of us, spiritual work, leading to the material work of living as greenly as we can and discovering, as we've all discovered to one degree or another, that it's more pleasant to live more simply, to live more greenly. Even as we at the same time call to account those fossil fuel corporations and our politicians, maybe march and rally, maybe commit civil disobedience, certainly vote or send an email or many emails. But yes, we do begin with ourselves, of course, which doesn't mean spending years in Buddhist meditation before we get around to anything else, or going to a monastery before we do anything in the world at large. But to be effective in our lives, we do well to be reflective about our lives and about the purpose of our lives. For many, meditation might be part of a path to such contemplation of what truly matters most and what matters less for our happiness and contentment. It's not that happiness and contentment are bad. It's what moves us in that direction, and everyone. And it certainly might include reflecting on which of our desires, including this desire for comfort above all else, are healthy, life-affirming, and which are not, which are even destructive of our personal well-being and of the well-being and health of those around us and of our communities, our nation, our world, the earth herself. And then, of course, action flows. We don't have to wait to have it all figured out, but action flows in the course of our lives and our days of reflection, contemplation, maybe meditation. And you know what? It might be that how shall we live in a burning world has not changed much in essence over the centuries, millennia, really. And this is why, after all, ancient texts whether Buddhist or Christian or Muslim, whatever, still speak to us once we strip them of historical and cultural overlays that no longer speak to us, no longer are relevant. The Buddha's teaching of how to live in a burning world, to tame the fires of unbridled desire and craving. Jesus is teaching to love one another, to love our neighbor as ourselves. It's worth pondering. What does it mean to love our neighbors? To treasure our neighbor's well-being as much as our own. Or the admonition in the biblical book of Deuteronomy, I have set before you this day life and death. Therefore choose life, that you and your descendants might live. Worth pondering. What does it mean? What would it mean to choose life? Or this from the Hindu Upanishads, the same stream of teaching as the Buddha, of course, this passage, you are what your deep driving desire is. As you desire, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. Worth pondering then, what is our true, deepest, life-giving desire? Isn't it the well-being of all beings? And isn't that what brings us a sense of well-being? The well-being of all beings, not only wishing for our individual comfort, but for all. And doesn't this give us more than a clue as to how we might choose to live in a burning world? Now, we heard earlier that beautiful passage from Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass. As many of you know, she's a biologist as well as a member of the Potawatomi Nation. So we heard that beautiful passage, her invitation to honor the responsibilities that come with having been given life. Elsewhere, though, near the end of the book, she cataloged the many kinds of fires. Michael, in his chalice lighting words this morning, said a little bit about this too. She catalogs fires, most of which are indeed life-giving, life-enhancing, from the fires that warm us on cold days, fires for cooking, hearth fires that warm our hearts as well as our bodies, to fires which with care clear the landscape for new growth, to ceremonial fires. And after all, each Sunday, as Michael concluded his chalice lighting words, we light a ceremonial flame, a little bit of fire, right? As we open our worship, this flame, this fire representing much, but surely representing the light, a certain kind of fire within, the energy within each one of us and all of us collectively gathered around the fire, energy of love and care and kindness. Yes, literal fire out of control is another matter, as we have seen only too well and more graphically than ever in recent months, just as the fire of desire out of control is another matter. But just as all fire is not bad, so as that text from the Upanishads reminds us, not all desire is bad, not at all. We desire food when hungry. We desire human intimacy when lonely, or just because intimacy, close connection is beautiful and good. It's simply and dangerously when we desire the wrong things for the wrong reasons or in the wrong way that we can bring ruin to our own lives, to the lives of others. So in the spirit of all that I've been saying this morning, many of you know this ancient Buddhist text, again, variously translated. It's often used as a meditation, and which is an expression of desire for the well-being of all beings. A version I use is something like this. I invite you to listen and hear it within your hearts. May all beings be safe and well. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings know peace. May all beings be at ease. You see, this desire is an inexhaustible flame for human flourishing for the flourishing of all life on this dear planet. This is what it means to choose life. This, it seems to me, as a guiding mantra for how we shall, can, and should live on a burning world. Dear friends, so may it be, because we help it to be so. We extinguish the flames representing joys, sorrows, concerns, but not the love with which they have been lit. We extinguish the flame of the flaming chalice of our faith, but not our faith, not our love, not our desire to bring love to all who we meet in our life path. This flame burns ever within our hearts. Our closing hymn, Earth Was Given as a Garden, is in your hardback symbol. If you'd like to follow along, it's number 207. Earth was given as a garden.
Earth was given as a garden, table for humanity. Tree of life and tree of knowledge, place for our discovery. Here was sown for all our creed. Born of land and sea, all created in your image, all to live in harmony. Show to us a land, a garden, where all life was fresh and free. Planting by your sons and daughters into full maturity. Teach us how to trust each other, how to use for good our love, how to watch the earth with reverence, and once more with neon flower. Bless the earth and all your children, one creation make us whole. In the golden dawn connected, and at one and in one soul. Holy Mother, life bestowing, guide our ways and mercy. Fill us all with grace unholy. Teach us how to live in peace.
It's a beautiful day. May we treasure and be aware of the blessing of this day for us, for all who are living under this blue sky, living in this crisp autumnal air. And may we, knowing the blessing of this day, knowing the blessings of life and breath, may we turn and make of our lives a blessing to others, a blessing to all life. So may it be, blessed be. Amen.
There are gardens waiting to be planted, and green hearts longing to be born. There are healings yet to be imagined, and wild fields waiting to return.
I invite those of you on Zoom who want to stay for a conversation to stay, and you should be able to unmute yourself